Hey there, and welcome back to Mass Effect 3. My name is Pete, and today we complete another episode of our Insanity walkthrough, after we have just returned from an interesting mission involving the Rachni, whose help we have actually secured for ourselves in a fateful decision that also involved sacrificing the Krogan Company. Now, that was last episode. Today we are once again setting our sights on Cerberus in not one but two small missions. Also in the last episode, we have learned that Cerberus is abducting colonists on the planet Benning, and that was not the first time that Benning was mentioned during this playthrough. So let us now jump into the galaxy map, travel over to the Arcturus stream and start things off with that mission here today. Now, in the Arcturus system itself, we can immediately start scanning.
I found something.
And we can find the remains of Arcturus Station, once a major political and military center of the System Alliance, and sadly also the site of a major battle between several Alliance fleets and the Reaper forces on their way to Earth. As such, unfortunately not much remains, but we can pick up some intel, and then shortly after also some fuel. And that is 2/3 of the assets in the Arcturus stream already collected. Only one more remains and then we can start our mission.
Signal confirmed.
And we also don't have anything too exciting here, just more fuel, so let's set our course for Benning. Now, you may have heard this name already in episode 7, where back on the Citadel, Ambassador Osoba asked us for evidence of his son, who apparently got lost during a mission on Benning. Nonetheless, I think it's safe to say that Cerberus abducting colonists is our main priority here, but of course we'll keep our eyes open. For today's squad then, we are bringing Garrus, as pretty much always, and also James for a bit more tankiness and firepower. Weapon-wise, we are then once again showcasing something new, and this time we are actually going with an SMG, the Blood Pack Punisher to be exact. Upgraded with a scope and a high caliber barrel, this should serve us nicely, admittedly though the mission also isn't too hard. James's loadout meanwhile is also a bit outdated, so let's make some changes. And first things first, we are giving him the Maddock Assault Rifle. I believe that is actually also the weapon that he carries in the squad selection screen, so apart from the fact that it packs quite the punch, that is one more good reason to give it to him. For the shotgun, meanwhile, we are going with the recently acquired M300 Claymore. I don't think he is going to use shotguns much on this mission, but if he has to, then this one here will make it worth it. In terms of upgrades, we are as always prioritizing damage output, and a bit of armor piercing has never hurt either. Garrus's loadout then once again remains as it is, and with that let's spend some upgrade points, albeit not on Shepard and Garrus. With both of them we are saving their 4 points for some higher power ranks, while with James we have a bit more to do. First of all, with 18 points, I think it's time to max out Arms Master. We can take this in various directions, prioritizing either damage output or survivability, although in my opinion James is already pretty hard to kill, so going all in with health and shield bonus here is probably overkill. That is why we are taking the slightly more offensive-minded approach with a bonus to weapon and power damage, and at rank 6 then we are going with squad bonus, which might be individually weaker for James himself, but instead increases the survivability of the entire squad. That now leaves us with 3 more points, which we can use to grab the second rank of Fortification, and with that we are good to go and can now start our mission on Benning.
Shepard, Cerberus strike squads have infiltrated one of the major cities on Benning. Initial reports indicated they were recruiting civilians, but further investigation suggested that people are being taken against their will.
For what purpose?
Unknown. We sent a recon team to investigate, and the Cerberus squads reacted by targeting civilians and public facilities. Officially, Cerberus is denying responsibility and condemning the action. They're either lying, or we're dealing with a rogue faction.
And innocents are caught in their crosshairs.
Exactly. Secure the area so we can establish a rescue lifeline to the rest of the city.
Approaching the drop point, Commander.
Copy that, Lieutenant.
The people down there are counting on you, Commander. Pack it out.
Fielding an avalanche of civilian SOS requests, Commander. The bulk are concentrated on the upper street. Cerberus forces are pinning them down. You better hurry.
On my way. Keep me updated.
Roger that.
Will do!
Right, so our ammo powers are set and in we go, immediately turning right into building 52 over here. Inside we can find a PDA with a short and seemingly hacked off message showing that Cerberus is apparently moving through the compound with quite some brutality. That means it is up to us to stop them, and it sounds and also looks like we are getting closer. This guy over here we unfortunately cannot save, so let us grab the spare parts behind him and get ready for combat. You can also already hear that we are dealing with a turret, so we want to be really careful as we make our approach. Now, wherever we find a turret, we also find at least one engineer, and in this case also a good number of assault troopers as well as a centurion. None of that is really unusual for Cerberus troops. What is a bit more interesting though is the fact that they are gunning down seemingly innocent civilians, something that, despite all of the cruelty that Cerberus has displayed so far, is usually not what they find themselves up to. So I would say that is cause enough to be concerned, as either Cerberus has significantly changed their MO, or there is something more going on here on Benning that would explain this approach. At the moment, all that we see are enemies in front of us, although for the time being we have ourselves a bit of breathing room.
Upper streets are clear. Hold on, Commander.
What is it, Lieutenant?
I'm tracking civilians fleeing the city with Cerberus troops right behind.
Where are they?
Updating your nav point. You can intercept them there.
Gotta double time it.
Now, we just picked up a dog tag, which is necessary to complete the side mission for Ambassador Osoba, and with it just lying around in the middle of the street, it can also be easily missed. The same goes for the capacitor helmet in the corner next to the dumpster, after which we make our way into building number 27, where we can find some ammo and a med station on the wall. On the walkway to container number 25, we then also have some spare parts, and with all of that in our possession, we can now head back outside and engage the next group of enemies. This time we are only facing 3 of them, 2 troopers and a centurion, so the fight here should not take too long. Once we are done, we can then head down the stairs and hear that some civilians are still alive.
I don't want to die.
And we will help them out in just a moment after salvaging some more spare parts and examining a computer console. The log entry over here does not tell us anything that we don't already know. Seems like Cerberus is not only killing but also abducting people, and maybe the 2 survivors can tell us a bit more about what's going on.
We're going to die here.
Look! Reinforcements are here!
Try to stay calm.
What? What should we do?
Just stay down.
Commander, more Cerberus troops are heading your way. If you can hold the line there, it'll give the civilians time to escape.
You heard him. We hold here.
Now actually, where we hold position and fend off the next wave of enemies is entirely up to us. With enemies almost immediately coming in from the container ahead of us though, that place seems like the logical choice to find some cover. It also gives us a bit of height advantage against the enemies in the courtyard below, and inside we can also salvage some more spare parts for credits and take a look at the 3rd and final log entry, although this one is, just like the others, yet another warning. Now, in somewhat regular intervals, we will hear from the 2 civilians, because as we approach and clear out more enemies, we allow the 2 of them to move up as well. And while our mission objective currently very clearly states to defend the 2 civilians, what is actually required of us to finish this mission is to simply clear out the remaining hostiles. As a matter of fact, Cerberus could not care less about our civilian friends. They will never even try to stop the 2, and even if they did, the civilians are completely immune to any and all damage. So we don't have to worry about them and can stay focused on our enemies, of which there are definitely enough to demand all of our attention. Another line from one of the civilians then marks our next bit of progress, but we are staying exactly where we are. In terms of strategic positioning, there are actually quite a few good spots on this map. Another good option, for example, would be Building 7, the one where we looked at the log entry before talking to the civilians. But all in all, as long as we stay inside and limit flanking opportunities, we should be fine. By now, you may have also noticed that we have in fact moved around in a circle on the map, as this container here leads back out to the landing pad where Cortez dropped us off earlier. That is a side effect of this map originally being part of the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, which, I think I have mentioned this before, does no longer exist in the Legendary Edition. So that is why, at least in theory, we have plenty of opportunity here to loop around and stay on the move, something that you would do in a normal multiplayer match, but against the AI and its comparatively weak enemies it is not really necessary. Now at this point, the civilians are moving into cover right ahead of us, which I think also makes it very clear that our destination is ultimately that landing pad again. It is actually possible to immediately rush for that landing pad as soon as you've talked to the civilians, but while that does of course limit the angles that enemies can shoot at you and also disables a spawn point on the landing pad, I haven't really found that it makes the mission any easier, because those enemies now simply spawn elsewhere and the landing pad is actually also lower than the rest of the map, meaning you would be giving every single enemy the high ground. And while the height difference can at times work in your favor, you can see it here that we can't really target the assault trooper who is currently on the landing pad. More often than not, it will also make it very difficult to hit enemies of your own, which could eventually lead to their forces simply overwhelming you. That is admittedly less of a concern once a good number of them have already been eliminated, which is why in just a second we are now making a beeline for the landing pad and do exactly what I just advertised against. Again though, we are already nearing the end of this short mission, and by now I do not expect us to face any more heavy resistance. At this time we can perhaps also spend a moment talking about our Bloodpack Punisher SMG, which as you may have noticed is not really the most accurate weapon over longer distances, but over close to medium range it can do quite a bit of damage rather quickly. And since most of the fights in this mission take place in that mid-range, I thought this would be a good mission to show it off. Admittedly though, I feel like the scope is somewhat necessary to stay on target. One big upside of this and basically all other SMGs in the game is of course the low power cooldown time, meaning that wielding only an SMG we can spam concussive shot even more often than usual. Now, against tougher opponents, concussive shot alone is of course not going to win us every fight. On this mission here though, facing a relatively weak opposition, I think it works just fine. All in all though, I don't think that this SMG will be heavily featured in this series going forward, at least not on Shepard, with whom I believe we have plenty of better alternatives available. Nonetheless, for this mission it was good enough to secure us the victory, and since this here is actually our second and seventh side mission of the game, we are about to unlock another achievement, albeit one that only exists in the original Mass Effect 3 and not in the Legendary Edition.
You're clear! Go!
Hold the transport!
We're gonna make it!
No hostiles detected in the immediate area, Commander. Reinforcements are moving in to secure the evac route.
Good work, everyone.
I'll pick you up at the LZ, Commander.
We're getting reports of continuing strikes against other cities on Benning.
Cerberus still denying responsibility?
Yes, and for once we're inclined to believe them. Gunning down innocent humans isn't their usual MO. Either way, the civilians down there have a chance now. We're solidifying a foothold and getting people out, then we'll move to liberating the rest of the planet.
I hope we can say the same for Earth.
One day, Commander. For now, we've got our work cut out for us. Carry on.
So, after Hackett has now voiced some of the same concerns that we have also already talked about, let us now take a brief look at our war assets. First of all, the Alliance 3rd Fleet has been updated as part of some scanning we did in the last episode, now adding the SSV Nairobi to its roster. As a result of completing today's mission, we have also unlocked the Arcturus 1st Division, an army of volunteers still operating on Benning. Now, I know that I promised you 2 missions in today's video, and we'll get to number 2 in just a moment. First of all though, there are a few rather interesting conversations to take care of. Don't worry though, this will not take too long.
You hear we had to evac another colony? We're losing a lot. Don't hear about the Reapers losing much.
Well, Reapers don't have colonies. Neither does Cerberus. If they did, we could drop an asteroid on them.
Commander, Chief Engineer Adams would like to speak with you down in engineering.
Look at that galaxy map.
Do you know how many strategy games are built from that interface?
You play strategy games?
A few. Most are too flashy though. I prefer chess. I have a set made from rose quartz and hematite back home. I like the feel of something solid in my hands.
Well, now that I know your weakness, we may have to try a game.
It'd be more fun than playing Edie. Edie doesn't sweat.
You sweat playing chess?
Depends on how much fun we're having.
Now, disregarding that second part of the conversation, we want to note that Engineer Adams wants to talk to us, and he is also not among our usual list of suspects, so that could be of interest. First of all though, a quick stop in the cockpit.
Turians will hold. Pound for pound, they're the best fighting force in the galaxy.
Pound for pound is irrelevant.
given the significantly higher mass of Reaper forces overall.
That's why we're bringing in the Krogan. Commander?
Shepard, you are staring.
Alright, looks like spirits up here are high as usual. Time to head back the way we came and see if we have any new messages.
Commander, there's a new message at your private terminal.
And indeed, it appears as if we have something in our inbox. This time though, the message comes from inside of the ship, as Liara wishes to talk to us in our quarters to discuss a project of hers. And that does indeed sound interesting, so let's head on up to the captain's cabin right away, where we can use our private terminal to invite her and see what she has to show off.
Liara, you had something you wanted to discuss in my cabin?
Yes, I'll be right up.
Come on in.
Thank you. Could we sit? I've been thinking about the knowledge we gathered on the Reapers, and how easily it could be lost again. So, I put a plan in motion to preserve things for the future.
What's this?
A record of the galaxy. Information on the Reapers, relays, different cultures, and blueprints of the Crucible. But there's one entry I wanted your opinion on.
Which one?
Your own. I'd be honored to have your input. How would you like history to remember you?
50,000 years is a long time for a computer to sit around.
Please, I was an archaeologist. I know what I'm doing. I'm encasing these records in time capsules and seeding copies on multiple planets. And while it's not foolproof, the VI I'm installing has every translation and linguistics program I could find.
So it's an information guide like Vigil on Ilos?
Yes, I've been preparing it for some time.
And it will be a privilege to guide the future discoverers of these records. Have you decided what you would like Dr. Tassoni to write in your entry, Commander?
Right, so we don't get any morality points here, and in my opinion all three options are really good options. I think they all fit equally well, but why not let Liara decide this one? It is her project after all, and she does know us quite well.
You know me well enough to fill in the blanks, Liara.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I'd like it to be your call.
I'll start by saying Commander Shepard was born on Earth, and fought harder than anyone else for his homeworld. Shepard could handle any weapon in the galaxy. The Alliance never saw a deadlier soldier. He was a soldier and a leader, one who made peace where he could. And it was a privilege to know him.
Careful, this doesn't sound like a diary.
I can't help myself. You're a good friend, Shepard.
And no, we are definitely not going with the nice to hear option here. I think calling Liara a good friend should be one of Shepard's easiest compliments to make.
You've been there for me too, Liara.
No, I haven't. I wish I could have joined you back on Ilium.
You made up for it.
Well, I suppose I did just write your name in the stars.
And there we go. If all else fails, then at least we have secured our legacy. Of course, though, our goal is to not let it come to that. And I would say a key ingredient to success is a squad that's on the same page. So let's visit the shuttle bay next.
Hey Esteban, for your shuttle being so stealthy and all, you sure do get shot at a lot.
Well, the UT-47A stealth systems only internalize heat and high-band emissions. So while few sensors can pick us up, our cover is blown as soon as someone looks up.
Time for an upgrade.
Most scanners and tracking systems don't operate in mid-range frequencies. Sure, maybe we've been shot at, but we haven't been shot down.
Yet. Lucky for us, you're almost as good a pilot as you think you are.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Can't believe Cerberus would open fire on civilians like that. As twisted and insane as his logic might be, I thought the elusive man was trying to save humanity. I guess he's willing to sacrifice anyone to win.
And this time James unfortunately does not have anything to say to us, despite taking part in the mission. So we can leave again right away and make our way over to engineering, where we will start things off with a few more of Javik's observations.
It seems you believed Protheans built the mass relays. The Reapers are cunning in their deception. allowing life to flourish, century upon century, letting us believe ourselves the masters of the cosmos. Then the truth becomes known. There are monsters in the dark spaces, and we are their prey. Your Liara Asari asks many questions. You would think she'd never seen a Prothean before.
And it looks like he's got a sense of humor, something that is certainly also not lost on our friends back in engineering.
Edie doesn't pilot the Normandy, she is the Normandy.
No, she's a passenger in the Normandy, just like us. The ship was a spacefaring vessel before Edie even existed.
Engineer Donnelly is correct. The Normandy SR-2 was completely spaceworthy prior to my installation.
See, Edie agrees with me.
Edie's mind and the Normandy are a whole entity now. You couldn't just move the processors in the AI core to another ship.
Engineer Adams is correct. Processes that contribute to my self-awareness are spread throughout the ship.
See? Edie agrees with me.
But unlike Edie, our brains couldn't have existed without our bodies.
That is a requisite from being organic. You have to look beyond that limited definition of life.
Joker pilots the Normandy. He doesn't take over Edie's body when he does that. When Edie controls the ship, she's piloting, just like Joker.
Edie doesn't pilot the Normandy, she is the Normandy.
Edie can direct the Normandy with her thoughts. She sees, hears, and feels through the ship's sensor arrays. The Normandy is her body.
I've seen Edie's body, and its curves are a fine sight better than the Normandy's hull.
So what do you think, Edie?
Are we more than our thoughts?
I'm done. Any more of this and my head's gonna explode.
Adams would like to speak to you.
You should go see Adams, Commander.
And after supporting him earlier, let us now see what Adams needs from us.
Commander, remember the problem I mentioned? About a core overload possibly venting into the engineering compartment? Daniels, Donnelly, Edie, and I have been brainstorming and comparing notes.
You see, the venting occurs when IES sinks are in a back cycle. At the same moment, the main core is at peak draw, such as from sustained kinetic.
What Kenneth means to say is that we're pretty sure we can make the system safer.
We just need a GX-12 thermal pipe. Unfortunately, we're cut off from Alliance supply chains. Could you keep an eye out for one the next time you're on the Citadel, Commander? I've got the specs right here.
Are these modifications really necessary?
It's a safety issue, not exactly critical. Under extreme conditions, like heavy bombardment to the kinetic barriers while traveling at peak flight speeds, plasma can vent into this compartment.
It would vaporize anyone standing in this room.
That sounds more serious than just a safety issue.
Well, under those conditions, odds are you're about to lose the entire ship anyway.
But we want every advantage we can get, right?
Alright, no morality points here, and both options are basically agreeing with him anyway, so we might as well go with the one that promises to get it done.
I'll look for one next time we go to the Citadel.
Thanks, Commander.
Alright, and with that we have acquired another small side quest, and this one is in fact as easy as it sounds and can be completed the next time we return to the Citadel. At this point, we are also more or less done with our brief tour through the ship between missions. The only place we have left to visit now before we jump back into the action is Liara's office.
Say that again?
The population of the colony world of Tyvor has been killed.
I don't understand. The Reapers have been taking people alive.
It was self-inflicted. When Reaper forces invaded, Tyvor's colonists detonated nuclear weapons inside their cities.
Goddess.
Their deaths would have been instantaneous, Doctor.
Thank you, Glyph. That'll be all.
Right, and on a bit of a downer, we can now use that intel we acquired from Arcturus Station earlier, and as always we can choose between two upgrades here. Both of them are excellent in my opinion, and you really can't go wrong here. As a soldier though, I think the weapon damage bonus is just too good to pass up, so that is the one we are going with. Following that, we can take a brief look at Liara's broker terminal, but apart from another entry in her Prothean notes, we don't find anything new here. This one, however, showing us that Liara may have looked at the Protheans through rose-tinted glasses, and that Javik has certainly opened her eyes.
Working on anything?
I'm helping decode some of the Crucible's designs, or trying to. Theoretical particle physics based on specialized base 12 mathematics aren't exactly my specialty. And Javik is his usual forthcoming self. I'd trade my last 100 years to resurrect even one Prothean scientist to help us.
Well, you never know, maybe we'll find another one frozen somewhere. At least for the rest of today's episode though, our sights remain set on Cerberus. After all, we have learned that Cerberus troops are apparently also present on Tuchanka, and so the Krogan homeworld is in fact where we are going next. Today we are only taking our first steps on its surface though, as again this is a rather short mission, but thankfully not the only one that Tuchanka has to offer. Now, the Krogan DMZ is home to 3 systems, but not too much of interest inside of them, so I think we can afford a brief scanning tour here before we get going.
I found something.
First up, we have the Dranik system, where with one scan we can immediately uncover 2 points of interest, the first one located on the planet Rothla. This one has a rather extensive description and also a fairly interesting backstory, as this former ice dwarf was basically blown into bits and pieces during the Krogan rebellions, so there isn't really much of a planet left to speak of. Nonetheless, we can find something of interest, namely a Shadow Broker wet squad, a war asset that is actually a bit more than that, as its acquisition will also allow us to speak to Bala Vaughn on the Citadel again, who was the one to point us in this direction in the first place. With a bit more fuel in our tank, we can then head over to the Nith system and start our scanner again.
Signal confirmed.
This time though we have only 1 point of interest and it is once again more fuel. That means it is time to return to the Aralak system, where you can see a bunch of missions waiting for us, although the system itself does not have anything worthy of scanning. With so many missions being available here though, I think the next few episodes will all take place here. We have to return to the Citadel once before we use the Shroud facility to cure the genophage though, otherwise we will not be able to complete a few of the smaller side quests. But I would say that is a discussion for another day. For now we have another Cerberus presence to investigate, so let's head planetside and meet our nemesis. For the sake of simplicity, our squad for this one will remain the same, although weapons-wise we are making another small change. Having talked about the pros and cons of the Bloodpack Punisher SMG, our next weapon showcase is the M90 Intra Sniper Rifle, a fully automatic sniper rifle shooting even faster than the M13 Raptor that we played with last episode, and upgraded with 2 damage-increasing attachments definitely well suited for today's mission. And that's all we have to do here, no further changes are necessary, so let's jump in and see what awaits us.
Shepard, Cerberus is landing forces away from the Tuchanka battlefields. Their target seems to be an ancient ground-to-space cannon facility that hasn't been used since the Krogan rebellions. The site has no obvious military advantage and the Krogan are spread too thin to deal with it.
Do we know what Cerberus is up to?
No, but we do know that Cerberus doesn't act without a plan. Get in there and stop them. Find out what they're up to while you're at it.
We'll get it done.
See to it. Hack it out.
Looks like Cerberus got that cannon operational, Commander. I'll go back up, get a read on what they're shooting at.
Get on it. All right, let's find the control room for those cannons. Anything in our way.
Sounds simple enough.
Right, so unsuspecting enemy in the corner over here. Before we open fire though, let's first grab some credits.
Commander, I have a visual on an inbound Cerberus cruiser. The cannon fire is clearing the way. If that ship makes it to bombardment range, the Krogan resistance is in trouble.
Keep track of it, Lieutenant.
On it.
Alright, so our objective here is clear. We need to stop those cannons. Standing between us and the completion of that goal, however, is a sizable Cerberus force, most of them located in the large central courtyard ahead of us. We are once again facing the regular composition of troopers, engineers and centurions, so all things considered, nothing that we couldn't handle. However, the map is once again fairly wide open with multiple flanking opportunities, so it does pay off to occasionally watch our back. This is another N7 mission, by the way, taking place on another multiplayer map, so once again it is possible to loop around the entire area and stay on the move, as all parts of the map are interconnected. The battlefield is a bit more open than it was on the last mission though, which is why I think that our current weapon, designed for medium to long range encounters, works quite nicely. As a sniper rifle, we are of course usually using it with the scope, but over closer distances, firing from the hip is also possible. All in all, the Indra has a surprisingly low recoil in my opinion. Considering the fact that it is fully automatic, it does a good job staying on target, although aiming for center mass instead of going for headshots is probably still the best idea. Now, positioning-wise, again, it does make sense not to advance too quickly, otherwise we run the risk of having the enemies attack us from multiple angles, and of course, that could end the mission rather quickly. So instead, we are using patience and a good knowledge of the layout of the map to our advantage here, and in just a moment we will have the first half of the mission already behind us.
Fall back to the control room.
This is now our cue that we are making good progress. In fact, the only enemy left on the map is this turret over here. So let's quickly take it out and then advance into the control room.
Control center secure. Then I think it's time to test this cannon.
A few more credits in the corner over here, and then we can climb up the ladder to take a look at the cannon controls. Before we use them though, let's collect a few more valuables.
Not the kind of Krogan relic I expected to find.
Now, the old grid schematics that we just picked up are part of another side quest, and to complete it, we have to return to the Citadel. In the back area over here, we can then find a few more items of interest, and afterwards we can head back up and activate the control console.
They're pulling the plug! You'll need to get the power back on.
Let's move.
Okay, and so begins the second half of the mission, getting the power back on. This time we are basically repeating the fight from before, but only in reverse, as we actually need to fight our way back through to where we started the mission. Unsurprisingly, we are meeting quite a bit of resistance along the way. However, this time we have the high ground and some great cover to go along with it, which makes this fight a bit more straightforward in my opinion. In my experience, there's also no risk of being flanked from the right, even though that is technically possible, but in all of my playthroughs of this mission, the enemies always came straight at me. This section of the mission is also clearly very well suited for a sniper rifle approach, although I would recommend bringing one that has a good amount of ammo capacity, otherwise you might have to give up your position for a brief moment to restock during the fight. All in all though, with our squad members helping us out and with Garrus also specializing in sniper rifles, this fight here should not be too hard. It is much more a war of attrition if you will, but I think the odds are clearly stacked in our favor, especially considering that if one sniping spot is blocked by smoke, we can simply go over to the other one. And well, that is really all I can say about this one. There really is no need for any further in-depth strategic elaboration at this time, although it might be worth mentioning that it is at least theoretically possible to rush past all of the enemies here and then head straight for the mission objective, which is to turn the power back on. You will see in just a moment what we need to do to achieve that, and I don't consider that a major spoiler, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I would not recommend doing that though, as it is extremely risky, and reactivating the power does take a moment, during which you are pretty much a sitting duck. Still, in theory, it is possible to significantly shorten this fight, and because, unlike in Mass Effect 1, we are not awarded experience points for individual enemy kills, I don't really see a downside to that, apart perhaps from the lack of an intense battle fought. Speaking of which, I think we are close to the point where our enemies realize that this is a fruitless endeavor, so in just a second we should be able to hear them call for the retreat. I have no idea why it takes them 2 minutes of fighting to realize that, but in just a second we will finally have ourselves some much-deserved breathing room. And following the brilliant insight that yes indeed Cerberus is facing some resistance here, their troops are now pulling back, which means we can push forward in hot pursuit. Conveniently enough, our enemies have retreated closer to our targeted objective, so we have to move in this direction anyway to bring the power back online. At this point we also don't have too much resistance left, only a handful of enemy units are still standing in our way. For the moment, these are the last remaining hostiles on the map, but the mission does have one final stage still waiting for us, during which we will then face a few more. For the moment though, with all enemies defeated, we can shoot at the latch here and then reactivate the power module behind it, and we have to do that twice to bring the power back online. As you can see, reactivating the module takes a while, which is why I don't recommend doing this under enemy fire, as every shot that hits you will reset the progress bar in the top right corner.
We're cutting it close, Commander.
I've rerouted the power to the main console. Heading back now.
And yes, at this point our next objective is indeed to once again return to the cannon control console, and once again we have to fight our way through a good number of enemies to get there. This time though, a fast approach can make life a lot easier. For some reason, rushing quickly across the courtyard causes a good number of enemies to not spawn at all, and so in just a moment here we will already be able to enter the command center. Most of the enemy forces have of course hunkered down inside, but most of the enemy forces are only a handful of soldiers at this point, and while we do not necessarily win the numbers game, we definitely have the edge in terms of firepower. So all in all, it does not take too long until the last enemy falls and the command center is cleared, which means we finally have access to the cannons and can finish this mission.
Commander, cruiser initiating bombardment.
Cannon control restored. Targeting enabled. Coordinates, Lieutenant.
Uploaded.
Firing!
Direct starboard hit, Commander. Target breaking up. Repeat, direct hit.
That's what I'm talking about!
All right. Good work, everyone.
Shepard, with those Krogan cannons operational, Cerberus has actually given us the advantage in that system. The enemy's pulling back, but we think they'll try to seize the facility again.
Seems likely.
I'm sending an Alliance team to keep it secure. They've got a foothold in a strong defensive position, thanks to you.
Glad to hear it.
Good work, Commander. Hack it out.
Alright, and there we go. We receive a lovely reward for completing our first mission on Tuchanka, and we have also once again earned ourselves a war asset. This is the second one alongside the Shadowbroker Wet Squad that we already acquired earlier, and which we can now learn a bit more about. From the mission that we just completed, meanwhile, we obtained the Krogan 1st Division worth 50 points. Quite interesting, I think, considering that this mission took place without any Krogan involvement whatsoever. That is certainly going to change as we keep doing other missions on their homeworld. For today, though, we will spend the rest of the episode here on the Normandy.
So, Reapers don't have colonies. You can't bomb them, or you're bombing what's left of your own planet. They make their own soldiers out of our civilians. They don't have supply lines. How do you beat something like that?
I'll let you know if I think of something.
Now this time we can head straight for the cockpit, as Specialist Trainer does not have anything new for us at this moment. So instead we can once again check in with the humorous portion of our ship.
Alright, here's another one. Dates back to the Rachni Wars. So, a Krogan and a Solarian have landed on a Rachni world for a top-secret mission.
That is unlikely. Solarians rarely took part in raids on Rachni-occupied worlds directly.
Missing the point. So the two guys are climbing up a hill going through this nasty green fog. And as they get near the top, they come out of the fog and the Solarian sees thousands of Rachni. He looks over at the Krogan and says, "Oh, well, that makes me nervous!" The Krogan says, "You think that's scary? When this is over, I have to go back down through that fog by myself!"
The implication being that the Solarian soldier would be dead.
Yes. Thank you for killing the 2,000-year-old joke.
That joke plays to racial stereotypes on both sides. The Krogan appears brutish and insensitive, while the Solarian appears weak. Stereotypes such as exemplified here led to the development and use of the genophage.
Well, yeah. It's also one of the only jokes you'll hear both Solarians and Krogan telling. Comedy isn't really about being nice. Sometimes it's a way to air out the ugly things people think. Commander?
Maximum dynamic pressure is approaching. Throttle down for minimal resistance.
Thanks, Mom.
If that is how you categorize me, I will tell you to stop slouching.
And as always, there seem to be no real issues going on here at the moment, so we can now wrap up today's episode with just a handful more conversations, which altogether will barely take about 3 minutes or so, and we are starting things off with Cortez and James down in the shuttle bay.
Wish you could have seen that gun on Tuchanka firsthand. I cut the auditory emulators and watched that Cerberus cruiser gracefully and silently disintegrate. Beautiful.
Sometimes I worry about you, man.
And after Joker and Edie, it looks like these two are getting along just fine as well.
Parts of Tuchanka reminded me of the desert back home. The lizards and worms are bigger, but, the sand and everything.
One thing that we can also take care of while we're down here is armor customization, as we want to equip the recently acquired Armax Arsenal gauntlets. They reduce our health a bit in exchange for more weapon and in particular headshot damage, and since we are primarily relying on our shields to keep us safe, I think that trade-off is well worth it. Now, moving on, we have one more stop to make in engineering, where we can listen to a few more lines from Javik and also visit Daniels and Donnelly again.
How do you see with only 2 eyes? Evolution has taken a strange turn in this cycle. Your Joker pilot insists I call myself Prothi the Prothean. I insisted he allow me to throw him out the airlock.
And with all of that behind us, let us now listen in to some gossip about Specialist Trainer.
Gabby, what do you think about our new yeoman, Miss Trainer?
She's not a yeoman, she's a communication specialist. And you're barking up the wrong tree, Kenneth. You're not her type.
Oh, well, perhaps you should go and talk to her then.
Maybe I should. Nobody's barking up my tree.
If it works out, be sure to take video.
My board is green.
Shepard.
Have you found that thermal pipe yet? There's probably a store on the Citadel that carries thermal pipe.
Engineer Adams, meanwhile, not impatient in the slightest, and yes, we will be returning to the Citadel in one of the next episodes. For today, though, one final stop before we wrap things up, as we have something interesting to overhear in the med bay.
Doctor, I'd like to hear the song.
Again? Trying to calculate amino acid decay rates.
You said you would once the tests were done.
Oh, better to die to a thresher maw with shotgun blasting roaring raw than to play ambassadorial games with the blood of Shiagar in her veins. Off to fight since Turians can't, with diplomats instead of a Krant, but she'll be true to Tuchanka's dream and live and die a Krogan Queen. For she is the Krogan Queen, hurrah, hurrah for the Krogan Queen, and it is a glorious thing to be the Krogan Queen. Still prefer patter songs.
Of course. I really had to twist your arm.
And with this wholesome interaction to guide us out of today's episode, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut for today. Now, in the next episode, we will likely complete another mission on Tuchanka. After all, we still have that Turian platoon to find for Primarch Victus, and after that, I think it's time to return to the Citadel. As always though, plans may change, so stay tuned to find out where we are going next. And as always, if you have enjoyed today's episode, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course do so, for example by subscribing to stay up to date, by grabbing some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or by checking out and maybe even pledging to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.